Dear viewers, Assalamu alaikum and welcome. Thank you for joining me once more in this video. I was born and raised in a Catholic family, where my parents took me to church almost every Sunday. On Saturdays, there were Catholic lessons, where I was taught to follow the rituals, pay tribute to the cross and saints, and learn about the Bible. As a kid, these rituals never resonated with me, nor did they sit well with me. So, as you can imagine, I had all kinds of questions. These were not the kind of questions that could be answered logically. Questions like, God is fair, but somehow He is making Jesus responsible for the sins of others. Or people would sin, then they would go to the priest for a confession, and then the priest would intercede for you and release you of your sins, making the priests a witness to your sins. The list of questions went on and on. Unfortunately, at the time, I was also dealing as a kid with domestic violence. I had an abusive father who was mentally unstable and used to beat me up on a regular basis. Most of the beatings I took could not be explained. For example, if I did something wrong and I got disciplined, that I could understand, right? So you would then know that if I did so and so, then there was a punishment. But it wasn't like that. I would get beaten up for just looking at my father in a way that he didn't like. And if my mother tried to get in between, the beating would be even more severe, just to taunt her. So I basically was living under constant fear. Didn't have family or many places to run to, so I avoided staying at home as much as I could. However, there was a Muslim family at the time living a few streets away from our place. I went to the same school as their son, so we became acquainted. Now imagine I was this odd kid that nobody wanted to play with. Nobody really knew what the daily struggle was I was dealing with. At the time, all they saw was a silent kid that kept to himself and did not make a lot of friends. So they kind of took me in, they invited me to their place, offered me dinner, and I was hanging out in this family that was, well, normal. Once it was nice weather and they invited me to go to the park, and the father of my school buddy was playing soccer with me. Wow, this man is playing with me. That is something that my father never did with me. One day when I was 12 or 13 years old, I received a phone call from this friend who went to the same school with me. He told me that the father of my childhood friend had passed away. I believe he was 43 or 44 at the time. How did he pass away? I asked, and he said, he died in the masjid while in sujud, like when he was prostrating. He had a heart attack during prayer and he passed right there and then. I did not know what to say, so I said the only thing that came to mind and answered, please convey my condolences on my behalf, and I hung up the phone. So now I started to contemplate, and I was asking myself, what did this man do to get such an ending, to end up leaving this world by being in service to God? These thoughts did not leave me alone, so I started inquiring about the man. All I can say is that what I learned about him astonished me. One detail I will disclose what I found out about him, as his good deeds were concealed, as he was making a difference in his community while staying in the background and never claimed any credit for it. He was not a rich man, but once someone came to him to borrow some money from him, saying it was money to support his family. Turned out to be a substantial amount at the time, according to his widowed wife, as they needed the money as well. He answered to his wife that Allah has always taken care of him and his family and we're never a day without food, so let's borrow it. He's going to buy food, not spending it on amusement. So as you can imagine, the loan wasn't paid back. His wife then told him to get the money back, but when he found out the man was struggling, he decided that he would make the loan into a gift. He made it halal, stating that Allah will repay him, as the family needed it more at the time than he did. This was the moment the seed of Islam had been planted within me. In my teenage years, I started to avoid eating pork, staying away from gossip, and in difficult times, I was always thinking, how would he handle this situation, and acted to it accordingly. Many years later, I once met a man claiming to be a Muslim, but all his actions and deeds did not support this claim. We started to have discussions, convinced that what he did was not prescribed in the Quran. I had a role model I looked up to as a kid, and he was nothing like that. Thinking if I want to have healthy discussions, I should buy the Quran, read it, and then at least be familiar with its content before engaging in any discussions. But that is a story in itself that I will tell you in another part, inshallah. Once again, thank you for joining me. Till next time. Assalamu alaikum.